Welcome back to Yang Daily. First off, a quick reminder that with the Yang Gang's over 200,000 active members, we could save over 600,000 hours per day for phone banking if they were all listeners. And every day counts. This is why I started the podcast, but I need your help spreading it. The faster, the better. Let's get to the news. I know you're all dying to hear about Iowa, so here's the results. Half of them. Apparently, the Democratic Party still hasn't managed to get it together enough to present the full results to us after managing to only report less than 2% of the precincts last night. To make matters worse, multiple journalists are reporting that the voting app has not been vetted by Homeland Cybersecurity Department nor any other third-party agency. None of the Caucus officials were trained in its use, and it had no end-user testing prior to the caucuses. Reports also said that the DHS and other security agencies have been raising red flags about this app for months, and when the DHS asked for access to vet the app, they were denied. So in summary, it's not only taking forever to get the results, but it's also questionable if we can even trust the results. It probably would have been faster and safer just texting them in instead of paying for this app to be developed. But it gets even shadier because the app was designed by Shadow, what a poignant name by the way, a company affiliated with former Clinton staffers and Pete's campaign, and they're planning to use the same app in Nevada. This is the system we're trusting our future to. Wow. But I digress. What are the questionable numbers? So far, they have Yang viable in a little over 5% of districts and winning 1% of delegates. A lot of the precincts yet unreported are the more rural areas where we focused our canvassing efforts, so that number could rise slightly when the remaining precincts are tallied. It's a disappointment, no doubt. Iowa was a chance for us to really break out of the media blackout and get people to consider Yang as a viable candidate. This result definitely doesn't mean the campaign is doomed. Many presidents did lose badly in Iowa. It just means that we missed an opportunity for an easy win. So it will continue to be an uphill battle going forward. It's all the more reason that we not miss our next breakout opportunity with the open primaries of New Hampshire, where we'll likely see much higher turnout for Yang from Republicans and independents, which are his secret weapons. That said, we did have a lot of success stories on Twitter last night, everything from precincts where a single Yangster entered the caucus and 8 of them left with a delegate, to precincts where we came in force, claiming first place with up to 40% of the total votes. If you're wondering about the other candidates, Bernie and Pete basically tied around 26%. Warren was next, around 18%. Then Biden, around 16%. Klobuchar, around 13%. Then Yang. Not really surprised by any of this. We knew Biden wasn't doing as well as the polls would have you believe, that Bernie would do well, that all Pete's strength is in Iowa and New Hampshire, and that Klobuchar has been strong there due to living so close and getting boosted by the media recently. With Pete being reviled by the vast majority of the black community, he's just taking up space here, so it's basically a solid win for Bernie and probably the end of Biden. In response to the party's inability to handle a simple voting app, Humanity for Yang has alerted that we are trending Yang Upgrades America today with the caption, "It's clear that America needs a president that understands technology." Sadly, it's also clear by now that Yang is the only candidate that fits that bill. You're encouraged to use the hashtag with a message of any way you think Yang would improve the American experience. Great job on yesterday's hashtag, by the way. We got it up to number 1 in the US and number 3 worldwide. No other candidate was even in the top 50. I ran out of time for events and leaderboard today. As always, check your local events daily at yang2020.com/events, and the leaderboard is always in the links. Ava Anderson of King 5 News released a sit-down interview with Yang yesterday that ran both on air and as an article. They hit a range of topics on the surface level. Yang gave a shout-out to the enthusiasm of all the out-of-state Yang gang who came to Iowa to volunteer and be precinct captains. Ms. Anderson responded that she had just met one such volunteer in Ames, who was temporarily living in Iowa, and that he was so determined that he never went to see Yang because it would have drawn him away from canvassing for the cause. She didn't give a name, but shout out to that canvasser, whoever you are. When asked about detractors framing UBI as an attempt to buy votes, as if it's any different from presidents offering to cut taxes or give other benefits, Yang responded, quote, "The freedom dividend would be getting the money that's leaving communities back into our hands. Our data is now worth more than oil, and people aren't seeing a dime of it. So this is a dividend for the American people based upon the value that we are already generating, end quote. He also explained that the value-added tax, unlike wealth and income taxes, is impossible to dodge, how UBI will be the greatest expansion of Social Security ever, and how UBI avoids all the trappings of means-tested welfare programs, such as losing benefits when your income rises too high, having to find, apply for, and report to a bunch of different programs, all with different requirements, etc. From the article, we also now have some context for Yang's emotional moment on stage the other day, as Miss Anderson asked after it, with Yang responding, quote, "I've been campaigning for the better part of 2 years here in the state, and I've just met so many people here. I've heard so many heartbreaking stories, honestly, from small farmers who are trying to make ends meet, people who are having to cut pills in half, or their high school classmates having fentanyl patches on their arms. And it really hit me that my time in Iowa, at least this time around, is coming to an end. And I thought about all of the experiences that my family has had here, my boys traveling around the state, and yeah, it was a very emotional moment just reflecting on everything we've been through together here in the state." End quote. The article closed with Ava asking Yang for one thing he'd like to impress on viewers, to which Andrew responded, quote, "The election has to be about our families. We have to make your life better on the ground here in Iowa, every single day. That's the standard you should have for your president. That would be my standard for myself as your president. It's not enough to send someone you like to DC as a job well done. It's about whether or not things are actually getting better for you, your families, your community right here in Iowa." End quote. Ezra Marcus, writer for Mike, ran off a brief article covering Chappelle's efforts for Yang. Nothing really worth discussing, but more exposure is always good. Ray Brewer also spun out a brief article on all the candidates migrating to New Hampshire. It quoted Yang as saying, "I'm even more excited to be here in New Hampshire, where our campaign has a ton of momentum, and we're going to storm the state all week long." While the article was not focused on any one candidate, I was pleased to see that WMUR TV revealed it in a tweet with a video clip of Yang and the caption, "Presidential hopeful Andrew Yang is now in New Hampshire, where he said his campaign has a ton of momentum." End quote. Pretty cool to see them giving Yang the top billing. Colin Donlan of the Daily Collegian wrote a much-needed article that perfectly coincides with today's hashtag, titled, "Other Politicians Are Lagging, Andrew Yang the Only Democratic Candidate to Talk Artificial Intelligence." He goes on to say of the Democratic candidates, quote, "Yang is the only one who has rightfully blown the whistle on artificial intelligence. Yang previously worked as a tech executive and saw firsthand how technology is rapidly advancing. He also believes that artificial intelligence has the ability to put millions out of jobs, and he is right." End quote. This myth of Yang being a tech entrepreneur seems unshakable. Yang's actual businesses were CEO of a test prep company, creating a philanthropic donation site, and Venture for America, a mentorship program to steer the best young minds away from Wall Street and into entrepreneurship. None of it had anything particularly to do with tech, though he is close with many top tech executives and clearly has a grasp of modern technology and its increasing agency on our lives, something that other candidates don't have and don't seem at all interested in acquiring. Donlan goes on to some of the reasons this is a problem, saying, quote, "China is currently running laps around the US and the rest of the world in the field of AI," end quote. This also needs a qualification. Most breakthroughs in AI are still coming from the US. However, China's government is bankrolling investments in the field far beyond the US, particularly data collection, which is the lifeblood of AI's progression, while simultaneously pirating any breakthroughs from elsewhere and enticing talent from the world over to work for them. It's only a matter of time before they take a commanding lead, which would likely result in China becoming the sole superpower in the world. And if you keep up with their perspective on human rights, that should be cause for concern. As Donlan says, quote, "The Communist Party of China set 2030 as the deadline for becoming the world's leader in AI technology. A key aspect of this goal is making China a hub for research and a home to future tech companies." End quote. He quotes AI analyst Joy Dantong Ma saying, "If America loses its openness edge, then the country risks pushing AI talent right back into the arms of its competitors, including China." End quote. Donlan then quotes Yang saying, "All you need is self-driving cars to destabilize society. We're going to have 1 million truck drivers out of work who are 94% male, with an average level of education of high school or 1 year of college." End quote. Colin also notes that many of these middle class truck drivers are a key working class demographic for President Trump regarding re election. The author closes by mistakenly assuming UBI is Yang's only response for AI, saying, quote, I think the way the US combats China in terms of AI is to fund research grants and tech companies to create more AI. There needs to be a Department of AI technology within the US government that is well versed in the technology field and able to further AI in the US. End quote. Both great ideas, which Yang has already espoused, likely with influence from Elon Musk, who has long been pushing for government regulation of AI development. Yang, in fact, goes further, proposing a World Data Organization similar to the World Health Organization, but for data. We've been skipping policy a lot, so today's daily Yang policy is a twofer. In light of the article above, we're looking at Yang's Department of Technology policy and Office of Technology Assessment policy. The Office of Technology Assessment, OTA, provided valuable research to our legislative branch until it was phased out in 1995. Free of the bias of private industry and think tanks, the OTA provided neutral information on the latest technological developments to legislators. Many of these reports, despite being a quarter of a century old, show an amazing prescience on topics that are still relevant to this day. Yang would refuse to sign any budget that does not reinstate this office, ensuring that Congress can make informed decisions. He would also seek to get it working together with the executive branch's Office of Science and Technology policy. Yang would also create a new Department of Technology to work with private industry and congressional leaders to monitor technological developments, assess risks, and create new guidance for regulating technology that is deemed dangerous, particularly AI, and suggest ways to mitigate those threats while maximizing the benefits of technological innovation to society. It would include a new cabinet-level position, Secretary of Technology, to lead the department. Today's Yang Daily 10 task is to make a game plan for how you intend to help the campaign over the next week, write it up, and execute. Because this fight is far from over. We have New Hampshire, South Carolina, and Nevada coming up fast. And that's our Yang News for today. Help trend Yang Upgrades America, check your local events, get on those volunteer leaderboards, plan your strategy for the week, and get ready for New Hampshire next Tuesday. As always, please share this podcast so we can save people as much time as possible for volunteering. And don't forget to Yang Daily.